Good evening, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the diaspora. You've got your Omega 7 live coming to you on Omi's production studio. And our topic today is the timeline of the laws and acts, a history lesson from Harriet's lessons. Now, I told you I wanted to talk to you a little bit about land acts. But before I do that, I want to pause and I want to say that um, some of my, let me bring it all over here. Some of my materials I have not been promoting and I want to start promoting them. You know, I've talked to you about my storytelling, and this is not the Harry storytelling. These are the children's storytelling and folklore that I do that will be on the market. You can order those. And also storytelling for the adults that comes from my new book, The Journey of the Class Agent. And most of those poems are here, spoken word, as well as the meditation. And you can actually view that video. And this is a video for adults as well. And this particular video is actually ministering to a large group of people. So that is for purchase as well. Now, these three videotapes, I've been talking to you about setting up a family resource center. And I had already, little did you know, I had already set up a family parent resource center. And I took everything that I knew and that I learned from the state during the time I was in Wisconsin, and I put it in 3 volumes of video, along with parents who participated, who were studying to become a parent resource center. They became parent resource centers under my training. Some of them already had their center. They were giving their centers a cosmetic facelift, and literally they learned as much as they could about the laws, the 94, 140, the 94, 142 law, also the 504 and the 457. And they were learning about the laws so they could make them applicable to their center. And most of them had children who had disabilities who they were advocating for. You definitely want to get these 3 volumes. And one of these volumes is called the Parent Information Center, #1. And then we have the Garth Faden Oracles, the special education, where I had a partner teaching with me. It was Garth and Baden who actually produced these videos. And this video also covers contracts and how to set up your business, what you need to do in order to become a parent resource center, and how to structure your entity. So you definitely want to check with me on those. They were going to be on my website so you can purchase them. And guess what? Here's a very special tape with one of my singles of spoken word. It's done in a rendition with music behind it. It's called I'll Be Brief. You definitely want to get a copy of that for your collection. Now, I wanted to introduce this particular videotape to you. It comes from 0 to 3. And I've been partnering with them and working with them on helping babies from the bench. I have a very a big heart for infants and toddlers. They're my first love. So I have committed myself to working with 0 to 3 in helping babies from the bench. And these are babies that have been brought in for maltreatment and taken away from their mothers and either their mothers and fathers' home due to abuse. And it actually tells the mother what to do to go back and the steps that they must do in order to get their children back. Now, I also recommend co-parenting resolution because for any mother that actually has a child that's in DCFS because of maltreatment, they're going to want to take parenting classes, and they definitely are going to want to take co-parenting classes. And I specialize in working with the judge on co-parenting classes. And one of the things we did in the state of Indiana in Maryville was open up our training center, which we had a brick and mortar building at the time. And we brought parents in and we offered them the option of training under co-parenting resolutions, and these were orders from the court. The court will give you an order to have co-parenting resolution, and usually it's for the divorced couple, and they have to go and take these classes to learn how to parent individually all over again. And Judge Kermit works with me on that. She endorses 90 hours of the class, and we do have her actual software and equipment for the training. So if anybody is interested in co-parenting resolution or in getting their children back from the system, definitely let me know. Send me an email and let me know. Now, I want to speak to the principals out there. The principals out there, we are doing a special symposium for the principal, and we'll be doing that this year, determining appropriate referrals of English language learners to special education. A lot of principals don't know this, but most of their children that have been diagnosed and put into the special ed department have been misdiagnosed, and really the child has English language learner barrier. And maybe English is not their first language, but they have a barrier, and they should be retested and placed in an English as a second language class rather than special education. Now, this is a book that we will work with the principals and the staff, okay? And it comes out of NABI. I work very closely with NABI because they work with English as a second language and those programs. Now, this one is assessing cultural responsiveness in after school programs. What are your programs like after school? Do your programs exemplify working with minority children or just diversity? We want to make sure you are more specific for those African American children and not just diversity. We want to make sure that there is an understanding that African American children do speak Ebonics, and it is their first language. And because it is their first language, and Orthodox English is not their first language, it becomes their second language. So we must treat them in that manner that they are working on a second language. And Ebonics has been described as a real language. It's a regularized code. And a lot of our children who come to school and they claim they don't have the 5,000 words, it's because they're speaking Ebonics. It's not that they don't have the words, they're speaking another language that you don't know about. And we want to help the schools to identify those children through after school programs that are age appropriate and diversify with activities for African American children. So NABI has put together a very nice booklet in creating culturally responsive after school programs for English language learners. That means, are they culturally relevant or are they irrelevant? And most of the time they're irrelevant. But we definitely want to get these into the hands of the principal, and we'll be talking more about that this year. I will be making my rounds to the schools and doing presentations for the principal to let them know, as an expert, I think they should go back and take their team in and reassess all their special ed students to find out if they have been misappropriately placed and should be put in shelter English classes instead of special ed. And we'll talk more about this when we get on the topic. Hopefully next week we're going to get on the topic of parent information centers. How do you start one? And who are those people that would like to work from their home to start their own? I started mine from the home working with Chad Chapter. I was one of the very first chapters who actually started the chapters in Hanover Park, Hoffman Estates, and also at that particular time, it was one of the Hanover Park, Hoffman Estates, and Bartlett, where we would work with the families to set up the CHAD chapters for attention deficit with hyperactivity and without it. And we actually had support groups. This will offer the parents to set up more support groups in the area so those parents have someone to network with. We are like a networking agent where we actually help and assist those families who are setting their homes up. So don't forget about these materials because they will be available shortly. We're just duplicating everything. Now, something you probably thought I would never get, Harriet Bloomers. I talk a lot about Harriet Bloomers. I'm going to also be hand making these Harriet Bloomers for those who believe in Harriet and would like to have a memoir of Harriet. These are bloomers that will have her name on it, and you'll have the name across here. This is just a replicate right now, but because I used to make a lot of baby clothes, I can whip that up real easy. But nevertheless, I want you to understand that we do have products, and we are going to have them marketable on my website. Two of my websites are finished now, and we're just getting that shopping basket ready so you can go in and make your purchases. Now, these things are going to be reasonably priced, nothing real expensive. Now, also are looking for you probably are also looking for the book for the effects of females have on African American male, and we will be bringing that book in to talk about more about how parents can implement that book within their home, and there's a workbook to go with it. And right now, our biggest thing is our formatting. The cover is finished, so we're trying to get that formatting taken care of. But I want you to stay tuned because we'll be talking to you more and more about the Parent Resource Center. And within that Parent Resource Center, we'll have tools and material that African American families can use with their Black boys and teachers can use in their classroom with rearing the Black boy and knowing how to assess the Black boy. So enough of that. I just want to give you that introduction. We're talking about the timeline of the Land Law Acts. Okay, this is Harriet's lessons, okay, for history. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Black Land Acts. And the first one is 1913, the formerly known as the Native Land Act of 1913. And they're talking about the Native Americans. And then the Development Trust and Land Acts of 1936 is what it was. Okay, the Development Trust and Land Act of 1936 is formerly known as the Native Trust and Land Acts of 1936. They changed the names to disguise them. An Unbeneficial Occupation of Farmers Act 1937. You find a lot of information on the Farmers Act. Then there's the Colored Persons Settlement Act of 1946. The Asiatic Land Act of 1946 is also called. Then there's the Black Affairs of 1959. It was also formerly known as the Native Affairs Act of 1959. These acts were affecting Black, Native American, uh, also slaves, who were also known as the indigenous First World people. They were affected by these acts. The Group Area Act of 1966. Um, Finally, the Black Communities Development Act of 1984. These acts were affecting African American, and there were a lot of Black codes on the market that had squatter laws that prevented African American or Blacks from loitering around without money in their pocket. And Indiana had a very heavy code on the squatters law, which would go in and arrest those men. Um, um, in which many of these fraudulent acts, they were fraudulent acts, were removed by June 30th, 1991. They start to remove some of these fraudulent acts. The 1913 and 1936 Act, much larger plan was on the way. They were coming up with other plans, and the acts were asked to be removed. They wanted them removed. The people wanted them removed. The slaves did. The acts were of 1934 and 1936 were removed on June 30th, 1991. They began to start to remove these acts, but they were still putting some of the Black codes in place. Um, what is the real definition of majority? When you see, of minority, when you see the word minority, it is a group of people who are dominating over another group of people. Uh, and they use that word to make it look like you were the lesser people, but they were actually dominating over those inferior people. And they called them the minority. Don't ever accept the word minority. You are not a minority, you are a majority. And you're not substandard. You couldn't sub anything if you wanted to. You have come from indigenous people. I want you to start calling yourself indigenous people. And these people that I'm talking about that were involved in these timelines of Land Act were a lot of Native Americans who were not actually indigenous people. They were completely mixed, and they were the ones who went through the Trail of Tears. However, we had a large number of African Americans who were mixed with the Native Americans, and we became those settlers who were actual slaves, and they wanted to put some of us back into slavery, and they did want the actual natives to release us from our slavery and allow us to be in their group and allow us to be naturalized and to be a part of these particular tribes. But most of the five tribal Indians did not want to release the slaves. So they were part of the problem too. They were holding slaves in captivity and they were not releasing them like the, the state had requested. So those are some of the acts. Now, there is the Black Land Act, and the elder man of the household recognized this. And it's sort of like a self identity. And these black acts were beginning to inflict upon the black people the pain. There was a 1950 act from the Southern African category. And while African American laws were 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 hindering the black African Americans. They could not do anything. This was before the civil rights movement. They had so many acts on them that they didn't have to worry about putting them in prison and jail because they were held up under contempt of these all these acts and laws. So they were always in place and they didn't have to be in prison and jail. During the 1968, there were less African Americans in jail than ever before, and there were more white, non-Melanin people in prison. And after the civil rights case, and they knew that they could blacks could start doing things and they couldn't control them, so they then start to incarcerate black men during the 1968, and that's when you saw the numbers plunder and the numbers go up for the African Americans. Then there was in 1936 the Native True and Land Act, colored uh, under color of person, under color person, and the Settlement Act of 1940. Let's see here. The Black Land Act of 1930, also known as formerly as the Native Land Act of 1930. Um, the development of the Trust and Land Act of 1936. They came up with all these acts and the Colors Person Settlement Act of 1946. As you know, they brought over a lot of immigrants from Europe. And these people were like squatters. They were squatting on the land of the black slaves. And they were given land grants. Like Dr. Martin Luther King said, they were handed our money and given land grants. And we were compelled to teach them about cropping and farming. So a lot of these people were Irishmen and women, and they were actually given reparation when they came over here. And we need to know about that. The Asiatic Land Act of 1946. the Black Affairs of 1959, formerly known as the Native Affairs Act of 1959, the Group Area Acts of 1966. Finally, the Black Community developed an act of 1984 in which many of the 1984 helped everything to end by June 30th, 1991. The fraud acts were removed on the book. A lot of these were fraud acts because they didn't hold true to their treaties. They broke treaties and they didn't follow through. So blacks were held up under all of these black codes, and there was a timeline that they were held up under all of these codes. So they didn't have to worry about the blacks getting in trouble and putting them in jail because they had so many codes. If they broke these acts and codes, they would be penalized. And blacks were not engaging in mischief at that time. So there weren't a lot of blacks in prison prior to 1968. But we need to know that there's some acts and codes that are still out there that are engulfing and affecting the African American. They're still out there, and Black African Americans are still suffering from these particular codes, and they're affecting us still to this day. But we have a real issue, and they set agendas for the black man to become the bald eagle, and they want to feminize the black man to make him feel less threatening to the Caucasian, and all these tricks that are being played, and our families are suffering from it. They're suffering very bad because it breaks up the family structure. But we as African American women know that the child is always at the center of the family, and that we can put our families back together. And knowing that we've come through a lot of stuff. A lot of people complain about, well, now I've come through a lot of things that I went through and I want to pass the baton. Forget the baton. You've come through. A lot, all of us have come through something. It's now time to see what we can manifest and produce as an institution. Every one of you can build institutions and create institutions. And we all should be able to create an educational institute. And that was my goal after retiring early, was to create an educational institute. And I did. I partnered with another Christian college and became an extension college of a college out of Florida. And I offered those classes online so that people could go online to take these classes, or they can come to an actual cohort classroom and be taught by other ministers. So it's important to have your own institution. It's important to create your own plan and mission statement and vision for your institution, because we've been held back long enough and we've heard much too many stories of how we struggled and what we went through. And I do the story of Harriet Tubman, and I'm doing it in past tense, where I'm not talking about the struggle they had and while going through slavery, but where they're going to be at now. What are they doing next? What is Harriet doing next? Had she have lived and was in this era and time, what would Harriet be doing? She sure as heck wouldn't be talking about that route that she traveled through the Underground Railroad. She'd be talking about manifesting institutions, building institutions. And I want all of us to get into the mindset that though these acts have tied us to a history and we pulled ourselves up by the bootstrap, it's now time to look at dismantling our penal institution, our judicial system, giving it and revamping it, because it does not work for us. It doesn't serve us well anymore. And we have to understand that those laws only held us captive and imprisoned us. And a large portion of our black men are still incarcerated and need to be released. But that can't happen unless we have an institute like a Parent Information Center. Within that Parent Information Center, we're not only going to have virtues that will address freeing those special populations of children, but it'll also address working with pro bono lawyers to hear cases of innocent people who were fraudulently put in prison. It will focus in on paralegals coming in, volunteering their time to be an advocate for some of these lost souls that are in prison who are innocent but don't have the funds to prove them because they can't write a brief or interrogatory or a motion because they don't have the legal support. We want to offer a pro bono lawyer with that Parent Information Institute that will go in and take some of those cases. And that's some of the things that I used to do for NAACP was to take their cases and to address their cases and to help those individuals who were innocent to prove themselves guilty, to prove themselves innocent, and to fight on behalf of their cases. And that's what Parent Information Centers do. It has a local ombudsman, or I guess you would say pro bono service that they offer to the community to help those people who might be incarcerated or families who might be incarcerated that are innocent. And we definitely have to start setting up societies like this. And I think you can't very well have a Parent Information Resource Center without having one there for those victims who might come out of special ed and end up in a penal institution and need help. Uh, a large number of them don't have lawyers to represent them, and we need to see more low-cost agencies where lawyers will take case on a pro bono basis or even free, a sliding scale. But we must understand that right now we're looking back over history so frequently. I think we got to go on into the near into the near future and talk about what our plans are for the future and not linger so much in the past of what we failed at or what we struggled at. But what are we going to do for the future? How will we correct history? How will we make history a different history book? Because we certainly need to rewrite our history because of so many lies that have been told. And just as I told you, the Harriet story has even been a displaced lie, and it needs to be corrected. And if I had more time, I would do it justice to talk about the fact that you had a lot of individuals that were working under contracts. A lot of people who came over were not slaves, and those who were servants, they were paying off a debt of their loved one. They were indentured servants, and they were not stripped of their rights like the black slaves were. They were given their 7 years of indentured service, and then they were let free. But somehow, since the Catholic Church made it a crime to be black and made it written that the blacks could be enslaved, so they went ahead and enslaved the blacks just because of their color. And that actually gave them no rights. They were treated like cattle, and they were sold like cattle. So they had no rights, none whatsoever. And I understand there are a lot of third world countries who are suffering the same way as if they were slaves over in India. Now, we've got some work to do for Black History Month. We got to stop telling these same old stories that are worn out. We got to talk about our place as indigenous people, how we were around in every nation in the bush, and we were always found there, no matter what. And we were the dark people. We got to start talking about where are those indigenous people now and how, and because they made up the world and they were functioning even even in when Hitler came into his office, he wanted to eliminate any black person, and uh, they were looking at ridding the world of anybody that was tainted with black blood. And that's a shame for someone to hate that much. But nevertheless, Hitler went over to India and he took the swastika from India. And India's swastika represented a goddess of time. And he took the swastika and turned it around counterclockwise and then brought it back and used it for evil. However, it was intended for good from one of the deities. Now, I said all that to say that how can one man destroyed a whole group of people because of their skin tone. It was also because they were gaining in finance and they were moving up economically, and Hitler couldn't have that. So he tried to wipe all of them off the face of the earth. Now we got a bad problem where they're trying to wipe black people off the face of this earth. And they're going after our men and they're incarcerating them falsely, some of them, and some of them are getting hit with charges. And we have got to appeal to our president about revamping the penal institution and our police department. Because we got a serious problem where masculinity is really not, it's not fetish to be masculine, because most Caucasian people are intimidated by a massive man who is masculine, has masculinity. They're fearful of them. So they want to break them down to a minute level, and a level that can't be feared in a feminine aspect. We cannot let this happen. We cannot let the black man go down in history as the most feminine, weak, and close individual, so that we can break him down to a level where he's not feared. Those are things that are unnatural. And we must speak to this to Mr. Enforcer and let him know that we're well aware of what's being done here and how this femininity agenda is leaking into every black person's home. And we cannot allow it, because we can't allow any more of our black men to be lost, either through imprisonment or through homosexuality. And we have got to understand that that is the lowest vice that anyone can use to try to eliminate black men from the earth. We must understand that they tried to do it to Jesus, and they came out looking for the every young 2-year old that was born around that time, and they were slaying heads. They were getting rid of them because of the fear. I say to you, Mr. Colonizer, don't fear anything, especially don't fear the black man. Okay? Do you think your time has come? You think he's coming after you? Well, then don't do so much harm to the black family by incarcerating and slaying them for no reason. Because you've got too much fear, you've got to eliminate that fear. And fear is very dangerous. But I said all that to tell you about the Black Land Acts, to let you know what was going on in the timeline. And this is just a short history segment. I didn't go into anything in depth, just on the surface. But I wanted to speak on that because I told you I would, come back and address that. But this is just a little known history fact from Harriet Tubman, from me to you. We won't be channeling her, but I would like to cover something else with you, though. And this is something special for the mothers that I set aside. Mothers, we need to have ORI destiny readings for our children. We need that for protection. And I want to give you something special. I know you may not be a Yoruba person or Ifa person, but this is generic and universal. It can help anyone. And I think our children should be dedicated. Uh, they should have an ORI destiny reading. Where are they going? What have they been called here to do? And the doula wisdom is what these children come here with. Orisha lifestyle is what you should be aiming at. I'm not telling you to embrace any traditional religion. I'm telling you to look at universal things. As you know, I will find truth in Buddhism and become a Bodhisattva, just as I have found truth in Ifa and found, comfort. I want to give the mothers some comfort for their children to get a destiny reading uh, as soon as you can with your children. And I'm going to give you a couple of the 7 Orishas, at least 7 of them. Ishun, the keeper of the Ashe. That is one who we appeal to. He keeps the Ashe. Uh, Universal power he has, spiritual power, uh, custodial of the Ashe. He owns the Ashe, known as the messenger. He is responsible for the crossroad. And if you don't know what the crossroad is, go between four corners and drop your four pennies on each corner. That's your crossroad. That's where you make your prayers at. Okay? The opener of the gatekeeper is what he's called. The messenger of Oromala. Romala is one of the gods. And he takes over our people. He takes our sacrifices up to heaven. When we give a sacrifice, um, Ishun takes our sacrifice up to heaven to God. Okay? And what else can I say about him? The opener of the gates, the gatekeeper, the messenger of Romala. He takes our sacrifices to heaven. Invader of the mediator and solidarity. Okay. Then there's Ogun. Ogun. Ogum. He's a symbol of swords. Ogun. A spiritual path clears the control. Any negative or positive. Um, and he's the leader of the way for others to come through. He makes way for you. Okay, Ogun. Oh, Chelsea, the spirit, the spiritual hunter and a tracker. He's known as a tracker, and the bow and arrow, shooting the bow and arrow, shooting the bow and arrow. Spiritual pathfinder. After Ogun and Oshun opens and clears the path, then Ochosi shows us the proper path, the shortest path that we can take. How do I get there in half the time? The shortest path to see down the way. How do we see down the way? And meaning of life, the trials, the spiritual alignment, the shortest path to see down the path is what we need to do. The keen eyesight gives us keen eyesight. Now, Obatala, and that is who's on my head. Obatala, a spiritual ethics, humility, morality. Okay? King of the white cloth is what he's been known for. Wisdom that comes with uh, old age, always associated with color of white, coolness, the coolest breeze. He also known for roles of human creation. Yes, Obatala was there to help in the human creation. He sculptured and molded and created us, but God gave the breath of life. Shango. Shango is an ideal of quick justice, fairness, spirit of lightning, and instant stunt. Illumination. He is our passion and drive in light. The king to Oba. He is the other leader. He is the outer leader. He is our passion and drive in life, execution and coverage, social responsibility. That is who Shango is. Shango also is the lightning. When you see the lightning, it represents Shango. Oye, and you hear me speak of Oye quite a bit. Oye, the spirit of the wind, transformation, sudden change. In many ways, she is female version of Shango. She's a female version of Shango. Oh yeah, the wind. And then Shango is also the lightning. Uh, Owner of the ancestors' gateway. Oh yeah, the woman who grows a beard, meaning the female warrior. She is with breath of life. She gives the breath of life and the carrier of the sound and music. So those who are given to music, Oye is one who I speak of a lot. because I love music. So she is a breath of life and gives a sound. Okay, now I think I've given you, let's see if I give you all of them. Yes, that's all I'm going to give you on those. And I thought I would give that as a little gift to the mothers, so you can set up your Orisha shrine and dedicate your Orisha shrine to your family for protection and guidance. You don't have to be a full blown worshiper and get involved with the religion, but you can be an Orisha uh, caretaker and caretake all of the Orishas and feed their pots and ask them for favors and assisting you in doing your ORI destiny reading for your children. If you have a new baby that's come into your life, definitely do their destiny reading. What did they come here for? What is their mission? What is their purpose? How can I harness their gifts so that they can be on purpose and be a part of whatever their mission is? It's very vital that you should do these things because, a lot of people don't have rituals and practices. I love rituals and practices, not necessarily telling you to go to church and be a part of church because we know that the religion have destroyed a lot of families, and we know that religion ties you to something. I'm not trying to tie you to anything, trust me. I'm trying to say, woman, thou art loose, to be loose from all these man-made religion and be able to hold on to God and find God in your closet and come out of these churches because your private secret place can be in a hole in the wall. It could be in a closet like mine is. And I wish I could take you to see the tiniest studio, one of the tiniest studios that I use also for my prayer room. But it's very vital that you have a quiet place where you consult with your higher self because you know you're talking to you and God who exists within inside of you. So start your worship there, mother, so that you can get on right standing with God. Then you can ask God and yourself for anything you need for that child, for the guidance. But know what their destiny is and get a destiny reading. And I'm not going to talk too late tonight because I came on pretty late, but I wanted to give you that little session. And I do hope to meet with you again because we have much to talk about. And I'm going to be getting more into your Family Resource Center, and we'll be talking about that next week. So, in the meantime, get on the scene. Tell somebody when I'm on the air. Give me 2 thumbs up. Please go down below and subscribe. Subscribe and let somebody know that my show is on the air and ring that bell because that'll let you know when I'm on the air. And I don't have a set schedule, and I am on several other shows trying to get my blog talk set up to literally focus in on families that want to become an advocate. On that show, we're going to be doing a live show, interviewing people that have stories to tell about their experience in the special education department and in the school system, and helping to make more advocates and do that live on the show. So we're going to be featuring that on Blog Talk. And our speaker show will also feature a segment of the Parent Resource Center. We're going to try and get stabilized to one area. I keep having to get off task and go speak on other topics. And I really don't like doing that. I like kind of stick to one particular major topic. But you can't with all this black news going on. And now that we are the black news representatives, we have to speak on certain topics. And someone might have heard me speak on the topic of the male wearing the dress. You can go out and listen to that. Because as a teacher, I thought it was only fitting that somebody should speak out on behalf of the child. And I do thank Fly Nubian Queen for stepping out on that topic. And I'm going to support you in everything you say when it comes to the children. And a lot of times people get afraid. They think somebody's going to hack their channel. They're going to do something to them. I want to say, I'm going to send a message out to all those who think they want to do something to me, who think they've gotten big and bad enough to come against the ancestors. I am rightly guided and I am protected by the ancestors. And they walk with me and talk with me. And you wouldn't want to mess with me because they will strike out at you. I don't have to raise a hand at you, but I am rightly protected as an ancestor child. I don't fool with nobody else. I don't hurt nobody else. And bet nobody raise their hand at me. Because if I go to that altar and whisper that you have troubled the waters and messed with me, woe unto those who come after innocent people. That's all I have to say. And I want to bid you farewell. And once again, give me those 2 thumbs up. Just let somebody know I'm on the air. Omi's on the air. You better go on over there and listen to Omi. She's talking some good stuff. And then subscribe. Subscribe and tell a friend. I look forward to meeting you. And let me say something down here in case there's anybody here. I have to say something every now and then. Hello, people. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, I will be back with you again this weekend. I did say next week, but it'll probably be this weekend. I'll be back with you again. And we'll be speaking on the topic of how do you set up a parent resource center. And we'll be talking about those products I just got to telling you about. Definitely want to put your order in for how to set up a resource center. We have it 3 volumes, and we'll have these printed up for you in about another month. That way you can access them. But these are darn good tapes that we've done live, and they're TV ready. All right. Thank you. And don't forget, if anyone's interested in working with me on the 0 to 3, helping babies from the bench, and these are the babies that are taken out of the home for maltreatment and who parents have lost their guardianship to and who are working to take child development classes to get their children back. Please remember that. All right. And also to those principals out there who didn't hear the first part of my show, these are 2 great books that I recommend for you. You can let me know if you're interested. Dobby prints these out. Determining the appropriate referral of English language learners of special education. And the toolkit number 1, assessing cultural responsiveness in after school programs. And I'd like to thank you so much. And don't forget about my Harriet Tubman Bloomers. These are going to be for sale with the name Harriet Tubman on it. These are her little bloomers, and you'll be able to use them as a little souvenir. All right, once again, thank you so much for tuning in to my station. And then I did also say that in that Parent Resource Center, we're going to have something like a press booklet on things that are legally dealing with the law, power of attorney, families forward, basic wills. And within that book, you'll be able to find all these things you need, and you'll be able to get some help with your legal pro bono because we're going to track out these lawyers who are pro bono lawyers that can give us free help for those families who have special needs. All right, thank you. Once again, straight ahead and into the future with you, Avon, Indiana, straight ahead and into the future with you, Danville, Indiana, straight ahead and into the future with you, Gary, Indiana, Maryville, Indiana, and Dallas, Texas, Dallas, Texas. Oh, Daba, and Baba Booey to you, y'all. Peace.